What is the worst that can happen? Well, when the Primal Pantry, a paleo brand on a mission to start a real food revolution, slipped from the heights of growing a £1.7 million turnover business in only 3 years to running out of cash and having to take a significant loan from an employee, this mantra of "what's the worst that can happen" seemed to help the company hold steadfast as they made their recovery. Welcome back to Life Design Diaries. I'm Lucy Menghini, and on this episode I'm talking with the lovely Suzie Walker. She's the founder of the Primal Pantry. It was really amazing to get to know Suzie and go and see their lovely offices. Her story is truly fascinating. We talk about how she started, what she thought about the growth of the company, how she's managed to navigate this really tricky time, all whilst balancing being a great mum to her little girl, Grace. Please enjoy my conversation with Suzie Walker, founder of the Primal Pantry. Really nice to meet you, Suzie. Thanks for coming on to our podcast today. So I'm going to start off by asking you about how you balance being a mum and running this business, which is in its 4.5 year.
4.5 years.
You've got a little 6-year-old Grace, who was the main inspiration for the Primal Pantry. So how do you find that balance?
I wouldn't say it's easy. I wouldn't say it's difficult. I wouldn't say it's easy either. I just kind of take everything in my stride, really. We are, everything's last minute. We are late. I'm notoriously late for school every day, rushing around to get out the house. She helps a lot, to be fair. You know, she understands that she's got to help in the mornings to get us going, get us ready. What I've started to do now is wake up a bit earlier before she's up and get an hour and a half bits piece of work and get the day ready and set up my list done in the morning before she wakes up, and then she's got time. You know, we've got time to get her ready and get her to school, and then I'm fortunate to be able to, and I need to be able to really have someone to help pick her up after school, because the days in the office fly by, and before you know it's 2:45 and you've got to be out the building and off to school to get her, and then weekends I generally only maybe work a little bit in the mornings. Getting the office after year one was the key sort of support element that allowed us to, you know, not treat my sofa as my desk at home. I don't really have a sort of dedicated working space in the house. So, you know, after year one, when we got the office, it allowed me the ability to sort of really split that homework balance out and really be able to shut down in the evenings, because your laptop wasn't open in front of you. It was still in your bag, or it was still on your desk at work. So it really sort of gave us the ability to switch off as well.
Really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what does Grace think about the business? Is she full of beans?
She is. Yeah. No, she comes up with some corkers. She you know, she runs around telling everyone that, you know, Mummy makes Primal Pantry bars and Mummy's in charge at the Primal Pantry, and
that's really nice.
She said to another mum at school who dropped her off at a school field trip, she said, "Oh, you're dropping me off because my mummy's the boss at Primal Pantry, and she can't drop me off today. She's got lots of work to do." But she gets it. She does get it. No, she gets it. She gets it, and you know, she tastes, you know, she's sort of chief taster of the bars, and she comes into the office. You know, there's days where, you know, the schools haven't started after the holiday, so she'll come in, and in fact, if you go look at my screen in there, I've not been sat in my actual room for weeks really, but my screen's covered in post-it notes with little notes from her all over it. So she gets it. She's kind of embraced it from day one, really.
That's really lovely. So do you want to tell us the story of why she was the main inspiration for the company?
I think really so my background is I started in sales at Nestle Confectionery, selling chocolates, and then I moved to sort of customer marketing into Nestle beverages. So I worked on the Nescafe brand with Tesco's. I was there for a few years, and then got the opportunity to go work at Innocent. So I went to Innocent Drinks, which was great because gave you a real insight into more of an entrepreneurial business.
How many years were they when you joined them?
This was 2008. So I don't know when they started. Was it 98, 99? I can't remember when they started. A good chunk in since they started. But 2008, which was a shit year for everyone, basically, and they had to make a third of the workforce redundant.
Oh God.
Which was a great opportunity at the same time. So I took the redundancy and used the money to pay for a nutrition course, and then started another job at Little Dish, which is an even smaller business.
Yeah.
And worked in marketing at Little Dish, qualified nutrition on the side. Built a nutrition practice in the evenings and weekends, started seeing clients, was working with a paleo type, primal type nutrition platform and lifestyle with them, which worked wonders.
Yeah.
And I got pregnant and went off on maternity leave in late 2011, 2012, and used the maternity leave to determine whether to go back to Little Dish or not. And subsequently I carried on to building up the nutrition practice.
Yeah.
And then when she was about 2, we were really struggling to find good foods, finger foods. And it was the same sort of summer that there was nothing on the fixture for us to buy that wasn't just raisins or rice cakes. And clients I was working with were doing really well with sort of breakfast, lunch and dinner suggestions, and where they really struggled was on the go snacks.
Yeah.
And so it was a case of what can we provide them? What can they buy that they can have in their handbags, have at their desk, have in their gym kit, have in their car, have on the plane. And so that summer 2013, I basically made some recipes at home and trialed them with them, and they came back and said, we want to buy these off you.
Awesome.
And that's where it started.
So do you guys live a paleo? Has that been part of
your
your
very
lifestyle?
In those days, I was very strict.
Yeah.
All through my pregnancy, all through her weaning process. She was weaned on chicken, to be honest, to begin with. She started on, she came off milk and went on to chicken and egg and really sort of a protein and fat based diet, because I didn't want to get too used to fruit based products to begin with and sweet stuff. And so we were much stricter. And then she discovered ketchup and chips. And, and then we discovered that actually, I wanted to enjoy food more than anything. I don't want food to be a difficult thing. And, everything in moderation. But where we are is generally it's a very, a real food based. We don't have lots of processed packaged shit in the cupboard. Everything is predominantly, paleo based food. And then when we go away or go on holiday or we eat out, then we're a bit more relaxed.
Awesome.
Ultimately, so
that's really interesting. I mean, no offense to Nestle or any of those guys, but going from a massive companies like that obviously are a processed food, to going down this route to producing the Primal Pantry and the types of products, that's really, really interesting. So in those early days then, what did that look like? So it was your idea originally, and then how? Because hands down, you have done so bloody well. But what does it look like? Who was there to help you in those early days?
So so the idea came about in sort of August, September 2013, and out of the blue, I got contacted by Dominic Maxwell, who's my business partner. So he was running a sales agency, helping international brands launch into the UK retail space. So bigger brands in their own markets, whether it was Spain, Australia, Italy, and he'd helped take those brands and launch them directly into supermarkets in the UK. And one of the brands he was working with was an Australian brand. It's an Australian sort of root vegetable based slimming pasta. And they turned around to him and said, you need a nutritionist to help endorse this. This will really help if you can find a nutritionist that can provide a platform to talk about the product. And he went on LinkedIn, and he lives five minutes away.
Oh, wow.
And he went on LinkedIn, and my profile popped up, and he contacted and said, would you be up for meeting up? And he's got 2 dogs, and so we met up probably about twice to walk the dogs. At that point I said, I've come up with these energy balls, what do you think? And I took him through the idea of cleaner nutrition, paleo, better labeling, cleaner labels, the fact that the market is missing products that are really simple. That was then, obviously. Really simple, really straightforward ingredients that you'd use to make at home. And I was a member of a CrossFit box at the time, and so I said, "What do you think of this idea?" And they said, "It's brilliant. We'd love stuff like this." And he said, where do you think you could sell it? And I said, it'd be great if we sell it in Whole Foods and Ocado. And he said, well, why don't we sell it in Tesco's? And I said, okay, great. And then I remember him sort of, we had various conversations about it, and he sort of questioned, you got to decide now, do you want a little sort of family run business that you can pass on to Grace in the future, so you're focusing on a very specialist, very craft type business, or do you want something that you can scale up and make big and get it listings everywhere and technically build a global brand? And we went for option 2, because what have you got to lose?
Yeah,
really?
Sure.
It's just to go for it.
Yeah.
There was a need in the market, the customer market fit, product market fit was spot on, and we went for it. All we did was Googled manufacturer of bars in the UK and spoke to several bar manufacturers, and that was quite challenging to find ones that would take the recipe and to understand why we wanted to make what we were going to make, and not put in things that would essentially just be bulking agents, which would cheapen the product, and how we wouldn't sacrifice the quality of products or the taste of the ingredients to make subpar products for a cheaper price. And we finally found the manufacturer who we still work with today, who bought into the idea, they bought into the vision, they believed in us, and supported us ever since. We now work with 2 manufacturers which both support us, and the first one really helped us get off the ground.
Fantastic.
And we went to go get a brand designed, which fortunately we were lucky with the designers that we found. And by February 2014, we put 16 grand on credit cards to go and have the bars made and pay for some packaging. And I think I paid about $8 for a Squarespace site.
Yeah.
And didn't do a very good job building it because someone managed to get on the shop page, which I didn't think was live, and place an order for a box of bars, which we hadn't even made yet. And so we thought, oh great, let's open it up for pre-orders. And when you're in that paleo space, when you've got a very niche product, when you've got what would have been at the time a very different product, it was very easy to sort of just spread the word on Facebook and spread the word amongst the CrossFit Box community and spread the word amongst the paleo community, and we ran a pre-order discount to be the first to buy the bars, which we hadn't made, and we did 20,000 bars in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which really sort of kicked it off. And
that was just like organic marketing from your side of things, just literally word of mouth, getting into those niche groups.
We didn't pay for any, we didn't even know what Facebook advertising was at the time. There was a paleo hour on Twitter every Tuesday, so you just sort of being the one speaking on there, or a girl I knew ran a paleo blog and she posted it on the blog, and it was almost easier that in 2014, late 2013, because social media was very different to the way it is now. And I don't know how easy it is to replicate it without putting a lot of money behind it.
Well, the platforms are the winners at the moment, aren't they?
Very busy at the moment. So, and that's where it started, really.
Well, that's amazing. Well, your credit cards were paid off then after your 10,000.
Eventually.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So the shape of that is yourself and Dominic, and just sort of one foot in front of the other, that sort of plan, or did you have a grand master plan?
The grand master plan was just to grow it as big as we can. We've always, for the first 3 years, I would say, maybe even the first 4, we're notoriously reactive. We, both of us kind of have a plan, but then you just want to see what happens. And which is all part of running a startup. We should spend more time being proactive, but we reacted to anything. If a particular market wanted the bars, we'd say yes, okay, have it. We wouldn't say no to anyone. And actually, some people would look at it very much now in the space we're in now, where everything's much more competitive. Is do you focus on one market, build that market as much as you can, and then pick a second market? Whereas we ended up in 33 markets by the end of the 3rd year because we said yes to everyone. And that brought a lot of complexity at the same time, because there was no strategic thought process into what we were actually doing. There was no element at this point of, where do we focus our spend, our marketing, our resources in growing one market really well. We just didn't want to turn business down because, in growing, a sale is a sale, at the end of the day. And things have changed slightly now because we've grown up as a business and we need to be in a position where we are far more strategic than we've ever been, you know, and it's, we've got the new mantra in place, which is, you know, think like a big business and act like a small one, basically. So we need to still be agile and still move quickly and make decisions quickly, but we need to be thinking more strategically, which is what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Because we are very fortunate to be in the big customers. So we're dealing with big customers and we're dealing with big competitors, and we're dealing with a very, very fast growing market that we're in. And we need the small business element to be able to react and be agile and change and bring new products to market quickly if we need to, or change the products that we've got if we need to, or change the positioning if we need to. But we need to be thinking more big business and thinking longer term.
Okay, cool. So Dominic, this is the first time he's done anything like this as well, apart from working for other businesses.
He's an ex-chef.
Right, okay.
So he's got years sort of chefing, and then he was more consultancy side and agency side.
Yeah.
And then this I would think would be his first, you know, full on sort of, you know, basically from grassroots up, you know, and sort of, you know, the business, you know, the other thing we say is it's time for the business to grow up a bit now. Yeah. Because we've been on, you know, funding journeys, and, you know, we're ready to sort of get back into, you know, double digit growth and scale up quickly now.
Yeah, sure. Now, how important do you think it is for you at that time to have someone like Dominic as a sounding board?
Very important. Yeah, incredibly important. You meet people now that are starting up. I mean, certainly we see a lot of people in the food and drink space, and it's a very lonely space. And even when there's two of you, it's lonely. And maybe not just food and drink, any sort of startup space, because you only know what goes on in your business, and you don't realize, you know, and you kind of realize now when you speak to more people, but you don't realize that, you know, whatever the industry you're in, everyone goes through the same challenges, and some people like to talk about it and some people don't, you know, and it's better now. The startups industry across all industries the startup space is a lot better, you know, and it's you know, people are sort of, the mindset's changing where, you know, failure is a good thing, basically, because it's the only way you're going to learn anything. And having that sounding board, you know, and having that yin to yang is really, really key. And we'll disagree on things, or we'll agree on things, or there'll be bits that he's better at, there's bits that I'm better at. I think it's, you know, there's no way you could have done this all on your own.
No.
You know, no way. So I wouldn't know any different otherwise on what it'd be like to do it on your own now. But it is key. It is key. And finding the right person is going to be key. You know, like I said, he wasn't previously, he's a great friend now, but he wasn't a friend beforehand. And, you know, it's interesting to think, you know, some people partner up with their partners, some people partner up with friends, some people partner with brothers and sisters. There's pros and cons to all of it, you know, and I think it was great that with us we knew we could bring a different skill set. I remember the time when we were negotiating what equity, who has what, and various things. And I thought, you know, at this stage, there's no business with me doing it on my own. And it's great to sort of, you know, bounce off each other's energies to get to where we are today.
Without going into too much detail, that's really interesting, that conversation around equity, because I think people really shy away from it. So what sort of process did you go through then to be able to get to a point of agreement on the two? Because I imagine if it wasn't equal, then how one person would feel over the other, or you know, what was that process like for you when you were deciding?
I think you've always got to remember, and the equity thing comes up a lot, because, you know, we've been through, from an equity perspective, if you include that day one, you know, so day zero you have 100% essentially, and we've got 1, 2, 3, if he's 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds of equity dilution that we've been through.
Right.
And I think a big mistake, there's two ways of looking at it. From my experience, it would have been a big mistake to treat equity as the be all and end all, and, you know, not want to give any of it up, because at the end of the day, no one wants 100% of nothing. You know, and I'm quite relaxed on the subject of equity, because the ultimate thing is you give a little bit up and you make something bigger is where it needs to be, subject to you giving it up to the right people that are going to actually help grow the business. Is what you need to be doing. But there is the other thought process of being really, and it's true, you be really careful who you actually give it up to. But you almost got to question is, what do I end up with and what can I do on my own? And what do I actually need? And what value do I have to give it to someone else?
Mm-hmm.
And day one, it was a case of, so it was Dominic and his other co-founder in the business he was at the time. So there's actually three of us. And, for us, it's really simple. It was my idea. I need people to come on board with me. I need people to help. I certainly need people to fund it and do the work, because it wasn't sweat equity. It was we were all going to put equivalent of cash in to make that 16 grand. And we're all going to work towards it as well. And so it was pretty straightforward. I kept 55% and they split 45 between them.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, husband, friends were sort of saying that's quite a lot to give away, but it's a lot of nothing at the moment.
Yeah.
Sure. And I'm going to give away more down the line, surely, at this stage.
Yeah.
So
give it to the people that it feels right in your gut, I suppose.
Yeah. Because it's nothing, and it's not, and if people are in that space at the moment, and I have met a lot of businesses along the way where they've regretted who they've shared their equity with up front, because it can be a very quick decision that someone makes, and you either have to deal with it or you have to buy them out, or I'm sure there's some very clever ways around. I don't know, do people restart their businesses again?
Yeah.
But it is being really careful.
Yeah.
But, I suppose it's a positive and a flaw that we make decisions really quickly. And you just have to question all the time, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, yeah.
There's nothing here. There's absolutely no business here unless, I find people that can be the backbone to drive it forward.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So when you sort of were positioning the idea, how long did it take, or did you struggle to actually think, right, this is it, this is what I'm going to do, and see the vision and have that conviction to go out and almost say, sell it to Dominic or sell it to your husband, sell the idea? Or was that a bit of a tricky process?
Yeah, it wasn't. We were very much working in the now, and to be honest, I did not expect to, we did 400 grand in sales in year one. Did not expect that at all. I don't know what I expected from it. I was never, at that time, I was never questioned on it. In year one, I was never, I say questioned on the way, I was never challenged on it in a way to think, what are you trying to grow here?
Yeah.
It was a case of, let's just do it. Let's just work from home. Dom's got a conservatory, works out of there. I had my nutrition practice in the background. He had his agency in the background. So there was always this, it was kind of this bit on the side.
Yeah, sure.
Is what we were doing. And it wasn't till that we saw, and we gained the confidence from the listings we were achieving in year one, that we thought, right, we need to raise some money now, and we need to go from wearing all the hats in the business. We were doing every single job going, and actually start to employ people. I think that moving in, taking a lease out on a building to move into, which is this building we're in now, and taking on your first employee, that's when it turns into a side business to the main business, ultimately. And that's when you start looking, right, what do we want to achieve here? And we wrote our first IM document to get our first round of funding in. And we went out to raise 150 grand. And that's when you start sort of questioning, what actually are we doing here? What is the plan for the business? And where do we want to take it? And where can we take it? And that's when we really started looking at it, at the entity that it was.
Yeah. So are you where you thought you'd be?
No, we're not. No. Thought it'd be a lot bigger than this by now. Yeah.
Looking at it, I thought you'd be the other way around.
No. Because we years 1, 2, and 3. So year one, so we did about just under 400 grand in year one. Year two, we did just under $1 million. So we grew quite well in that second year. Year three, we did 1.7 million. So we grew really well in that second to third year. Yeah. And we needed to raise some more money. So we raised again with private individuals. And, we raised just under £1 million in that round. And the idea was to then grow it again, double the business, triple the business in this case, because we built the platform by getting the distribution that we got. Yeah. And that was sort of just 2017. And we came into that year, which was... last year. And it was tough, really tough. We had overextended ourselves because we'd gone into too many different markets. We had lots of different products. We had lots of people we recruited. So we we almost oversubscribed ourselves, essentially, and overtraded, and said yes to every customer going, and grew the team massively. And we had a field team, we had an in-house sales team, we grew the marketing team, and we were still sort of deciding where do we actually spend the investment money. And I think an area we took the decision on was we got more people in junior roles than people in senior roles. And actually, in hindsight, we should have done it the other way around.
Less people, more experience.
Because you probably come up to later, the biggest challenges in running a startup is, number one is cash, and number two is finding the right people. And as great as all the people were, they weren't, some weren't the right fit for the business. With the market that was going the way it was, all the competitor products coming in, subsequently we ran out of cash and we ran out of stock. And from July last year to March this year, we couldn't supply our customers. And we would literally, it was hand to mouth. And so some of the good team members left. Those that didn't work out left. And we went from 26 people to 11.
Wow.
By last July. And we couldn't, we had customers that came and we couldn't supply them, or we had to be very careful of which ones we actually did supply. And by December last year, we were still gaining new listings. We were launching into the co-op. We were getting more stores. People wanted the product, but we couldn't even make the product, let alone sell it, because we had no money to make it. And so it was really hand to mouth. We were, BT were chasing money, and American Express was chasing money, and manufacturers were quite rightly chasing their money. And so we went around another funding route, essentially, which was to go out and see if we could raise more money again. And we started that sort of September, October time last year. And we were really lucky because two things happened. One was, December last year was tough because the co-op wanted the product and they wanted to put it into 1,000 stores, and we didn't have the money to make the stock. And we're very fortunate that a member of our team came forward and said, I'll lend you the money that you need to make the stock. And it was a lot of money. And we were in a position where we thought we can't say no. Again, what's the worst that could happen? We're going to take the money, we're going to make the stock, we're going to sell the stock, we're going to keep the customer happy, and then we're going to get this deal over the line and bring in bigger money. And then in March this year, we closed the deal for £3 million of funding. And that was injecting the business in March. And then we went on a big recruitment drive again, and bringing in a new finance director and a head of sales, and a more experienced sales team, and a more experienced marketeer, and building a proper senior leadership team, which is what I should have done from the beginning. And really putting us in place ready to drive for growth. And it's not been easy. It hasn't been easy. It felt like we were out of the market for quite a period of time. We were still sort of drip feeding products in that we could make, but there was a lot of stuff that came in last year. A lot of competition came out. So when we were quiet and out and down and not in the market, they came in. And we let a lot of distributors down because we didn't want to let down the big customers. And the distributors just take another person's product. They'll take another brand in that space. So by the time the money landed in March, we still had no product. We wouldn't have product till June because we had to show that we could pay for the product before it was actually made. And then it was a case of playing catch up to all the months that had gone by. And so the business is back in growth, but I want it to be further ahead than where it needs to be, and
get back on the track of those first 2-3 years. And the investors do as well,
quite rightly. So it's getting back to where we were last year, and then growing on that as a base.
So do you think then for that round of funding where you went out and recruited lots of people, did yourselves and the leaders of the business think that you could have more people and still keep hold of the control rather than hiring people that would come up with you and take some of the things off of your hands? Do you think that's what you were thinking?
I think so after the second round of funding, we we took the decision, like I said, to hire a really junior team, which wasn't ideal, because then you're training up juniors. I use the term sort of spoon feeding in some instances.
Yeah.
Whereas actually you need to, when you're running, from my perspective, when you're running a business, you need to hire people that know what you don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Ultimately, and that you can learn from.
Yeah.
And they say when you're looking to recruit, write the 3 big things that you can't do and you don't know how to do, and they're the first 3 people that you bring in.
Yeah, sure.
And we rushed it. We created roles that we needed, and we rushed it, and we interviewed people, and we liked the people, we brought them in. And not in London is a challenge, because most people maybe not live in London, they want to work in London, especially in the food and drink scene. And so finding good people that would then commute out from London or live around here was a challenge. And you're trying to, at the same time, being a small business, Daniel Priestley refers to it, if you're under 13 people, you're still a family.
Yeah.
As soon as you get over 13, you're not a family anymore. And it was a case of how do you instill that culture in, and what we found now, because we've hired a very different structure to the team, is you bring in more of a senior leadership team, you instill the culture and the values together as a team. So we've done that, we've set our own values as a team together, and then they build the platform so they can recruit their own team underneath them, and in their different function areas, and instill those values and vision and culture amongst that team, and then we're all kind of aligned and driving the ship forward together.
Yeah. So you've got your little mini families, I suppose.
Yeah. We're small. I mean, there's 13 of us now, and it's we're a very open business anyway, which is the way it should be. When I say we got down to 11, the people that were left after going through all that, they're still here now. Yeah. So some of them are still here now. Yeah. So it's great. The adversity, we've all been through it.
Yeah. Yeah. You've all gone through something together, and you can go from that point. Yeah. Okay. That's really, really interesting. So it sounds like you have a mental work ethic that you've instilled into those 11 people that are still here now. So where does that come from? What did school look like for you? And
God, I suppose you could say I was inherently lazy at school. I don't really know. I think my work ethic came from I would say I put it all down to being in a bigger business. I think what I loved about working at Nestle was it was people in senior roles, men and women. Back in 2006, 2007 when I was there, I do get a lot of questions about diversity in the workplace and what have I witnessed and what have I seen and what have I experienced. But at Nestle was brilliant from that sense. Some of the senior team members that I was reporting into were fast, brilliant women, and it wasn't a business of the nature that you had to be on a grad scheme to get through. There were people there in senior roles that had worked their way up through the business. So it had a really good sort of work ethic there. And I learned a lot working there about, how to be part of a team and how to be part of a bigger business. And then being thrown at the deep end at Innocent was very different, where it was very much, people that had been on amazing grad schemes and people that had been, I always refer to it as the head boys, head girls. They all worked there. Ultimately, it was a very different work ethic, but it kind of threw you into the deep end of you're very exposed in your role, and everyone's challenging you. And it was a very startups ethic. So everyone was working really hard, playing really hard, and very different to Nestle, where any role is quite protected in a way because there's so many of you. And then going to Little Dish gave a much bigger insight to a smaller business, and so I learned a lot there as well. And I think that's great. I think it's good to go big to small, and take those learnings with you each time. I think that's I think the best buzz I get every day is when you come in the morning and you just hear people talking about the business, and what they're doing, and they're talking about their customers, and some people say, oh, it was quite a tough time last year. How did you manage? And that was exactly it. There was no difficulty coming in every day because you knew that they were here, and that they were coming in every day, to keep sort of driving the business forward. Really. Okay. Because, there are situations where people would struggle and want to give it all up. But I couldn't. I had a whole team of people. I didn't want to. I knew it would be fine. And you just kind of, in those days, it was very much day by day. We don't know who was going to ring us up to be paid. It was very much day to day, and which customer was going to pay us, which will give us some money, where would we spend that money? Because ultimately every penny that came in had to go make more bars.
Yeah.
You always had to have payroll, which was always key. So you would always determine what would be the best use of the spends to keep going to the next day.
Yeah, of course.
So and it's it's great. We secured the funding and it's great, and we've got lots of learnings, and as I say, the pencils have been sharpened, and we're ready to move forward. But it's I don't think we've actually taken the time to stop and really breathe and feel what it's now like to have some money in the account, to have stock in the warehouse, and all the challenges we had before. We're not facing now. We've got new challenges now. So, but we just don't. We just move so fast that we say, yep, that's done, that's fixed. Let's carry on.
Yeah. So from all of that last year, what's been the biggest learning that you've taken from it?
I suppose managing cash has been the biggest one. Really planning. It's not planning for the worst. It's you're planning cautiously. The mistake I made before July last year, when we had the previous round of funding in 2016, was we had massive growth aspirations. And there's nothing wrong having massive growth aspirations, but you don't build your business plan and your budget based on that. And that's what we did. Yeah. And so we had a cash flow line that was, ever increasing. And when you hit a month where you're, a few $100,000 behind where you were supposed to be, that's a few $100,000 out of your cash flow line that you didn't expect. Yeah. And that's what we were dealing with. And what we're learning now is that's great. If you can hit those sales numbers, that's brilliant. But plan not to, and run the business so you don't run out of cash again. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest learning, I think, in that way. Yeah. Being more prepared, and thinking it through, and thinking, if that doesn't come in, or if that listing doesn't happen, or if that customer stops selling a product, where do you end up? Because cash is king at the end of the day.
Yeah. Or keeping that cash in the bank.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to when you guys first took out that £16,000 to start the business. How did you feel, taking that leap of faith and taking that money out on those credit cards?
I think the other co-founder, mm-hmm. I remember him ringing up and saying, "Are you sure you want to go ahead with this? And are you sure you want to go and buy, book a production run and buy the bars?" And again, it was really straightforward. The conversation was 10 minutes long, and you sort of ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? It's a business where you're buying stock. So I thought, I'm buying a product that will last 9 months, that can sit in my living room floor for a year or 9 months, whatever it would take, and I would eventually sell it. I'm sure I could somehow eventually sell it. And because it was on a credit card, I could pay it off whenever I needed to pay it off, pay the interest and take years to pay it down. So it wasn't a tech idea, or it wasn't a service idea, or something we had no idea how you're going to pay it back. But I was technically investing in a product that hopefully I would be able to sell over a period of time to pay my money back, or at least part of the money back, to pay off the credit card. So the risk at that stage didn't feel like a lot. It's not a lot in that sense. Yeah. If you've got a product that's going to sell. Yeah. Ultimately. It was always that case of what's the worst. What would happen if I didn't sell it? What's the worst that's going to happen? Yeah. And am I happy taking this debt? Because we took bigger debt later on. We had to take a £200,000 loan out in 2016 because Tesco's wanted to put the products into multi-pack boxes into 500 stores. So again, you kind of question, okay, well, we're going to take a huge loan out now that's going to make stock that we can then sell. The worst that can happen is we sell and they don't buy again. Mm-hmm. That'll be the worst that can happen. But as a business, we'll then have to factor it in how we pay it back. Yeah, that's really interesting. It sounds like your decision-making process is very simplified. Yeah. In a totally... it's quite simple thinking. What's the worst that can happen? Yeah. Very pragmatic. Yeah. Be simple. Be simple. Yeah. Is that one of your values? We're looking at the brand values on the wall. Be real, bold, simple, good, be profitable. Yeah. Yeah, we're not on that one yet, but yeah. I'm going to reword that one. They were going to be more commercial, really.
Yeah.
It's sort of getting everyone thinking commercial, thinking if this was your business and this was your money, how would you spend it?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. That's that thinking small, behaving big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the production of and the actual development of the product started in your kitchen. Is that still very much how you're doing your product development?
Yeah, to an extent. We've got quite a lot of bars and recipes now in the range. We've got some new ones coming out in January.
Exciting.
And because the manufacturers we work with, they get it. They know what we want to make. It's really easy now to say, can you try making this recipe, try making this flavour, and they'll make samples and send it over. The other way we do it is because it's the bars are at the moment the range we have in place are date based. You just kind of grab a date, get some other things you like, stick it in a date, eat the date,
see what happens,
and see what it tastes like.
Yeah.
Again, it's really simple, really simple. Because it is just bars at the moment, so it's pretty straightforward to extend the range and come up with new flavours and get them to make up some samples and taste them, improve them, get some focus groups together and get going.
Okay. That's interesting because the few other founders that we've met, so for example, Huel and a drink called Watermelon.
Yes.
They have been telling us how difficult it is to get a product off the ground into a shop, basically.
Yeah.
So with you, it sounds like the relationship with the manufacturers, and then because it's such a wanted product, you've got the demand from the supermarket. So is it quite simple for you, would you say?
It's do you saying they found it difficult in creating the product? Or?
From everything, from creating it to getting prototypes to getting it on a shelf. Okay,
the creation of it, because it's something similar to like you wouldn't make Huel at home. Well, you would. It's a good comparison actually. So with products like ours, people were making energy balls at home. So it was very straightforward to convey to the manufacturer what we needed to make, because it was quite a standard thing that was being made in the house. And two, it's very easy to communicate to the customer and the consumer what it was, because it's very similar to what they would be making at home. And a bar is a bar, and you just determine what goes in the bar. They're a professional bar manufacturer, so they can then actually make it.
They've got all the tooling and things like that. Yeah.
Huel is different because it's so specific what they need to put in their product. It's not something that anyone would have come up with at home, on their own, because they're working to a proper nutrient profile and a proper taste profile and key ingredients that create the powdered bulk from the protein powders. So it's a very different product than something that we would make, whether it's a cake or a bar or a trail mix or whatever it would be. At home, there's probably no specific manufacturer that specializes in what they're actually trying to do. So that's where the challenges would be if the product is very different. There's an incredible business I've met, which is a vegan cheese company, and her products taste amazing. But now she's going from making it at home, and the only way she's tested the market is by making it at home and selling it in jars, and those jars have to retail at £7 because she's buying labels and jars and stuff all on her own. And that's not a real test of the product because, it's an incredibly high price point. She's now got the challenge to try and find the manufacturer that can then make the product. And it's not a standard thing to be made. But if you can nail it, then it's brilliant. And that probably worked the same with the juice.
Well, the problem I think with the watermelon is the shelf life. And getting it pasteurized in a way that you're not adding acid. I think they do have a little bit of citric acid in there, and then keeping the flavors the same. And so it's really interesting. And there's a lot difficult in the same breath.
Well, there's a lot certainly in the food and drink industry of people that haven't come from the industry, so they're really learning as you go along. Shelf life, product testing, product labeling. What you can and can't say on your packs. There's a lot.
So do you think that your experience of Nestle, Innocent and Little Dish, is that right? Little Dish, all of those roles have massively helped?
Yes, hugely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very much so. Through those roles, you've got first-hand experience of speaking to the customers, like Tesco's and Sainsbury's. And once you know that, you know how the customers work, how promotions work, you know how to... The other thing you go into it, it's one of the big challenges that a lot of startups have in the... expand the market outside of food and drink. So consumer packaged goods as an industry is pricing. They don't understand what how to price the product, because they don't know what the expectations are going to be once you sell it to the customer, who then sells it to the shopper. They don't factor in what margins and what cost is actually going to become involved once you put that product on the shelf.
Yeah. So if you had to get creative introducing the product into some of these big brands like Tesco's and Sainsbury's, or is this tapping into a network that you already had?
No, it was definitely not a network, because the buyers move every 3 months.
Yeah.
So very rarely is it through a network or someone we might know at a retailer. And when you do, you might know someone really high up, and it can be effective. Might not be, because the buyers love to have the autonomy to make their own decisions. Yeah. So we got in at a time when there was no innovation in the fixture. There is now, very much so, but there was just a few of the big brands we were competing with a product that they liked, on message that they liked. Paleo was quite niche, actually, so they weren't really sure about where that would sit, but certainly being plant-based and being gluten-free and being dairy-free, and notably being a clean ingredient stack, was really on trend, and it is very much on trend now, and ticked all the boxes. So
yeah, it was the key elements of the bar is what basically sold itself. It's stepping into the market at the right time. Okay, cool. So finally, this is some questions for me. Going back to your nutritional days, I'd love to know maybe what your top 3 tips are for anybody looking to entertain a paleo lifestyle, or, as a nutritionist, all those skills that you learn. I think it would be really good to share. Number one, probably buy Primal Pantry as your snack. That'd be one of them. Okay, from a paleo perspective, whether you're going to choose, a plant-based route or a paleo route, preparation. So step 1 is, go through all your cupboards and donate everything that you're not going to eat. It's crap.
Yeah. So, tins of all sorts and pasta or whatever it might be, take it down to the food bank and donate it, and get a good cookbook. Very much so. If it's paleo, there's loads, absolutely loads. Get a good cookbook and write a really good shopping list of what you need, and then plan out, a good few weeks of meals to really kick off. Yeah. Good snacks, obviously, but just be really clear of what breakfast options there are, what lunch and what dinner. There's so much resource out there. Traveling is always where people get stuck. And so making sure that you've got something that you can travel with, and whether that's snacks, whether that's whole meals, whether that's meal replacements like Huel, whatever it might be. Yeah. So it's being prepared is the key thing, and sticking with it. We were not prepared
this morning. We stopped in McDonald's.
No, well, oh God, yeah. Any sort of dietary change, you've got to go past sort of 2 weeks. You've got to stick to it. You'll feel shit for 2 weeks while your body's getting used to it. Yeah. And that's the problem. People then they say, "Oh, that lifestyle's rubbish. I feel terrible. Yeah. I feel tired." Or your body's detoxing, essentially. If you've lived, 30 years of eating rubbish, and then you're going to go for 2 weeks eating better, it's going to be a shock on the system. And it's just sort of stick through it and stick through it, and remember why you're doing it. Ultimately. Yeah. And whatever sort of plan you want to do, or I think either way it's still, whether it's plant-based, it's everyone, I think, needs to be more mindful of what they're eating. And everyone needs to really understand where it's coming from, because we're really lucky in the UK. We're really lucky in that the food supply chain is, I wouldn't say it's transparent, but there are food groups or food ingredients that we're not allowed to eat in the UK or in the EU for that matter. We don't have genetically modified foods that they have in the US yet. We have an industry or a consumer group of people that are demanding more transparency. So we are in a nice time now where the big guys are being tested. They're being tested to disclose what's in their ingredients lists, to be more transparent in where the products have come from. We're the last few years, there's been more focus on plant-based nutrition. There's been more focus on animal welfare, where the products are coming from, where the eggs are coming from. The businesses that are succeeding are either the big guys that are adapting to it, or the little guys that are coming out and saying, this is my, field to fork mantra. This is exactly where your food's coming from, and the process that we've been through, and the packaging that we've used, and now is the time really to become more informed. Because the information's there.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for seeing us today. Where can people find you?
So we've got a range in the Co-op. Mm-hmm. So we're in Co-op stores nationwide. If you're on the road, we're in BP M&S stores. We're in Tesco's. Yeah. We're in the big Tesco's with multi-packs. We're in Sainsbury's in the gluten-free section. Mm-hmm. All the bars are on Ocado. All the bars are on Amazon. And then we've got our website, which is primalpantry.com.
Awesome. And where can people find you to find out a little bit more?
God, on LinkedIn. Uh-huh. I'm on Twitter as Primal Suzie and Instagram. And then they can obviously contact hello@primalpantry.com as well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.